John Pierce's firm at the time, Pierce Bainbridge, was hiring online. Reached out to them. They'd let me work remote. So through Pierce Bainbridge, when I was there, that's when I started getting involved in the first January 6 cases. Pierce was the original attorney, picking up as many cases as he possibly could. I remember cases such as yours. We had Chris Worrell. Trying to think. I remember James McGrew coming through. But, I mean, within like a month, we had 12, 15 cases. Then an interesting turn happened. Pierce was scheduled for several different hearings, one of yours being one of them, and he got hospitalized with COVID. And we had no attorneys other than Pierce and myself, who was not at the time licensed at the firm. It was us two and a paralegal. So I reached out to the court back then and let them know kind of what was going on, that, Pierce was in the hospital. There's no one else here. And Judge Maida, in your case and another case, had ordered me to make an appearance on the record just to update them. And then I obviously not as bad as all you J6ers, but then also felt the wrath of the DOJ from filings hitting headlines of man living in Pennsylvania, practicing law without a license. And then just a few days later, the media also found my case, and that all spun up here. I did later get a provisional license out of California, and which has since expired, which we'll go to that later. But after working with Pierce, I got involved with Shipley, and through the cases with Pierce, but mostly Shipley, I was involved in the legal defense on 91 different cases through January 20th, 2025.
Let me paint a picture real quick, right? Because I remember the first time I met John Pierce via video call, and it was, we were going public defender. I had a lady named Maria Jacobs, I believe was her name, and she told me that the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence were not legally binding documents, and just like these people that were at these super leftist schools that were just trying to tell us anything and force us to take these plea deals. And John Pierce comes along and he'd be like, "Yeah, I'll take your case." And when I hired him, I'll never forget, he said, "So how's it feel to have Michael Jordan on your team?" And I was like, I guess it feels pretty good. Pretty good. But
if Michael Jordan never showed up.
Yeah, it was probably more like No-Show Jones, I think, would have who it was.
Actually, if I recall correctly, the hearing that because I appeared for 2 hearings for you by direction of Maida, where the very first one should have been, I think, Pierce's first actual court appearance for you.
Yeah. Well, and I think I didn't realize it at the time, I guess, but if you look back at some of the things that Pierce was involved in, was the Kyle Rittenhouse thing.
Yep.
And so I guess I'd want to say, and maybe this is me saying this, so no liability on you, but I think he raised millions of dollars for Kyle Rittenhouse, and then just dipped out. I think took the money and ran.
I'm unsure of the facts, so I don't want to speak as if I know. But from my understanding, from my understanding, at least on his side, it took time for the money to get from the hands of who had it to Pierce to get him out. The money did show up, he did get him out, but that's just my understanding from kind of being inside the firm at the time.
Well, what happened, Pierce eventually faded away, right, and kind of just, I guess, went off. People gave up on him because the thing was we were fighting with these court appointed, and nobody was really in a position, especially in the DC jail, after being in there a year or whatever it was, to be able to pay for an attorney, and to have an attorney take an interest in us and to come along and say, "Hey, I'd love to fight for you," which is really what we wanted all along. And everybody's like, "No, I'm not getting in that fight. I don't want that smoke. I'm not having skeletons dug up in my closet. I don't want the feds investigating me." Whatever their reasoning is, I'm not fighting.
I was living proof of that,
Yeah, I mean, they will come after you, and so it wasn't it was nice to have somebody pursue us for that, but at the end of the day, it just was not something that panned out.
Right. So Pierce stayed involved through cases up through, I remember, the end of whenever Trump pardoned everybody, Shipley came and got involved shortly after I and Pierce made headlines for the quote unquote disappearance. And that's how I started kind of getting more involved with Ship. Was, he had done, I believe it was like 25 years of federal criminal law, either on the prosecuting side and then on the defense side after a while. And I just really wanted to learn from him. So whenever Shipley got involved with Pierce and tried to kind of help him start like navigating some of those waters, I kind of clung to Ship a little bit and trying to just learn, because this was my first, outside of the being a law clerk at the courthouse for the judge, I had no actual practical legal experience, and I wanted to learn from someone that legitimately knew what he was doing in the criminal law field. I stayed then after the Rittenhouse blow up of Pierce on Tucker. Ship decided that we needed to break apart because he was just concerned that with what Rittenhouse said about him on Tucker, there'd be no trying to raise money to try to come up with money for legal defenses for you guys.
What did he say? I don't remember that. I was locked up probably for that interview, but
it was the accusations of all the money came in and then it took Pierce forever and Pierce was ignoring him. Now again, don't know. Not saying that's true,
right.
Not saying, right. But that's just, if I recall correctly, that's what Rittenhouse was claiming. Pierce kind of took the money and was giving him problems and just not showing up for him. So Shipley decided we needed to break apart, that he was concerned that the NCLU was not going to be able to raise the funds that we really needed to adequately, defend a lot of you guys, especially, at that time, mostly everybody was just getting charged with felonies.
Mm-hmm.
So Ship and I broke apart. I still stayed tied to John on some of cases because John was my supervising attorney through the licensing program. But Ship and I broke apart and started getting more involved in cases on our own side.
Y'all went y'all's own separate way, meaning y'all broke away from Pierce.
Yeah, so okay. Shipley was only just like co-counsel with his own firm. He was never, an actual employee or anything of Pierce Bainbridge. He just, after he saw all the articles, he kind of stepped in and got involved and said he would help on the help as well as outside counsel and co-counsel on some of these cases.
Was Shipley involved in the Oath Keepers or the Probably?
So
he was one of those.
Yeah, both of them actually. So Ship was, and I was as well. So in the second trial, we defended Roberto Menuda. I was licensed at that time. I didn't file a notice of appearance, but I did sit through a lot of that trial with him. We weren't involved directly, but also, was consulting with a lot of the attorneys in Group 1, because the first trial that Stuart Rhodes was in, it was the exact same everything, just because there was 8 to 12 defendants in total. It got broken up into 3 separate groups. And then we found.
Hey Ryan, let me take us to commercial break really quick, because we gotta go. We gotta go pay some bills. But thank you guys for tuning in to Liberty's Cage. I'm Shane Jenkins here with Ryan Marshall. We will be back at the America First Warehouse with more Liberty's Cage right after these messages.
Most people think they have options when searching for the best deals when they travel. But here's the shocking truth. 100% of the major travel agencies are owned by just 2 entities, Expedia and Booking Holdings. They claim to offer the lowest rates, but due to the hotel rate parity agreement, they all have the same pricing, limiting genuine competition. When you book through these sites, you act as your own travel agent, but the profits are going to organizations that don't support our patriot values. We cannot allow that to continue. So, we decided to make travel great again by starting a US-based travel membership platform, mypatriottravel.com. We are patriots helping patriots. Together, we can disrupt the travel industry by not spending our hard-earned dollars supporting the radical left. For just $29.99 per month, you gain access to true wholesale rates on travel, saving you on average 35% and up to 65%. Book as often as you like, with no limits. Keep your hard-earned dollars in your pocket and spend them on things you need and want to support. Go to mypatriottravel.com/TAFW and grab your membership today. mypatriottravel.com/TAFW, making travel great again.
Are you a true American? Then it's time to get connected. Download the America First Media and Television app and stay up to date with real news, bold voices, and live events from the America First Warehouse. From national broadcasts and exclusive shows to comedy nights, concerts, and special events. It's all right at your fingertips. No filters, no spin, just America First. Download the America First Media and Television app today and be part of the movement.
I'm sure you guys remember the platinum single, Justice for All, with Donald Trump and the J6 Prison Choir. Well, get ready for round 2. We're coming out with Anthem of the Free with High Res and the J6 Prison Choir. It's coming out now. It's pre-sale until December 19th when it drops. Get yours on all platforms, Google Play, Apple iTunes. Get it. It's going to be hot.
Justice for all, our voices ring. The anthem of the free.
It's me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse, most patriotic venue in all the land.
The America First Warehouse, a beacon for all to see, a symbol of unity. For the patriots of America, we stand tall and free. In the America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Shane Jenkins with Liberty's Cage with my guest, Ryan Marshall. So, Ryan, you were talking about the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys. You want to pick up where you left off?
Sure. So we finished up the second trial in the Group 2, and then Shipley got involved in Group 3, representing Michael Green. He was co-counsel. Oh, I cannot remember the attorney's name off the top of my head right now. And that was actually that was the first complete acquittal on felonies that was received in the Oath Keepers. So Michael Green was acquitted of all the felonies, and I believe just found guilty on the misdemeanors. Then I believe it was 12 Proud Boys that Ship defended.
Well, I have a question. So in this, right, they're trying, I'm assuming groups of 5 or 4 or 3, whatever it is, right? Each, if it's me, Ryan, and Joe the Box, all on trial together, we all have an attorney, right? Mm-hmm. And our attorneys are, sometimes wouldn't that be conflicting? It seemed like, well, if if I broke a window and you guys didn't break a window, you and Joe the Box didn't break a window, your attorneys are going to try to be separating you from me in regards to that, I'm assuming, right? And so isn't that kind of, they're sitting us at the same table, but we might be...
So you're right on that. Now, in the Oath Keepers case, everybody was charged with the exact same charges. But there were other cases where, they were consolidated down to several defendants and people were charged with, let's just say a 111B, which was the assault of a police officer with that either caused bodily injury or with the use of a dangerous or deadly weapon. Mm-hmm. It is a reason to ask to split that defendant, or that either you want to split away from the person who was charged with things you weren't. But the workaround always was, and what the judges relied on was during voir dire, asking the jury, can you segregate or separate the evidence here? And they always said yes, which
Can you separate your politics from this? Oh, absolutely.
And we all knew the answer to that when considering the Department of Justice in the January 6 cases averaged a 99.68 conviction rate, when on average outside of J6 that their conviction rate on average was 62, I believe the statistics were back then, 62%. So yeah,
that's crazy. So not virtually impossible to win. So my question too is, what? I just don't know. I don't know what. I don't think there was anything that the attorneys could have done unless it was some kind of legal mess up.
There were a few cases. So the first case that we took to trial, Shipley and I, was representing the defendant David Mahaffey, and he was charged with the 1512 and the 111A. We got him actually acquitted of the 1512. It was a bench trial before Judge McFadden, and Judge McFadden did Mahaffey never went in the building. Mahaffey was who they referred to as the tunnel commander, kind of like directing traffic in and out. And was he
the gray-haired guy that had the black jacket on that was kind of standing out in front?
Yep, okay. He was. Yeah. And the reasoning for that was he was one of the few cases where there was no text messages or Facebook posts or anything about wanting to go to DC to stop that certification.
Right.
That was, I think, whatever always got everybody hung up was most people had these messages in Telegram, text message things, stop the steal. And the government wanted to take that literally, as in you're going to go there and what did they truly expect you guys to go in there and hog tie every, congressional person down? Like,
well, and it was marketed that way by Ali Alexander, which disappeared. I don't know where he ever went, but he hasn't been seen since, and it was probably conveniently named Stop the Steal.
There was that case, and another case that stands out to me was Dova Weingart. She was charged with actual destruction of property, but the evidence actually showed the property that they blamed her for trying to destroy or break or cause damage to. The video evidence showed the damage was already there whenever she, did what she was alleged to have done. Mm. But other than that, we were starting to see juries come through that this is their second or third panel, that they were called for.
Yeah, well, they were taking, they enjoyed. I'll never forget in our jury selection, I was sitting there and this guy, he gets up in the box to testify, like the judge is asking him his questions or whatever, and he's like, yeah, from my porch you can see the Capitol or whatever. And he says, I'll sit and have a glass of wine at night and look at the Capitol, and sometimes I'll raise my glass and say, hello, old friend, like to the Capitol. And he said, and when I found out what they did to the Capitol building, and it was like, the judge is like, so you can't separate that from this, and he's like, no, and he's like, well, then you're struck from I forget how they say it, but it just was
struck for cause.
Yeah, over the top. And another thing, it was like whenever they brought the jury in, it was like 100 people, I guess 70, maybe 75, something like that. But I
believe it was always 100.
Okay, I could feel people behind me, like there were some people that would get up and like walk by and like turn and look at me like with disgust or anger, like if they'd have had a gun they would have shot me. Not a great place to go to. Oh, you would have thought I'd killed somebody or killed their dog or something like that, but certainly not the case.
No, I know.
Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt, Ryan.
No, you're fine. But outside of those, a few instances like that, these cases were very, very hard to win, especially in front of a jury. Mm. And then we got to the point a lot of times, where SHIP was recommending, the best option is a bench trial, because at least judges can sometimes, differentiate between, the propaganda put on by the DOJ and what the evidence actually shows. But even these judges, I think at some point, we're starting to have a hard time because, they're seeing the same case over and over and over again.
Well, my question is this, so how do they convict? Like, let's just take those keepers, for instance.
Okay.
Or the Proud Boys. Like, other than maybe I could think of Dominic Pizzola breaking the window, mm-hmm. which he wasn't even really with the main group of Proud Boys. But there was no plan to overthrow the government.
No.
They weren't armed. Like, so you're putting these people on trial for sedition, like to overthrow the government.
Right.
How are you finding these people guilty?
They wanted to hang their hats on the text messages of, come armed, come prepared. Trump might call us for a militia. The people who brought weapons did what they were legally allowed to do. They were in hotel rooms in Virginia, which they were allowed to do. Nothing was brought to the actual Capitol grounds.
Right.
That was...
No, go ahead.
That was simply because they, were concerned and believed that, Trump was going to call up for the need of a militia. And at that point, then they would be authorized. But there was no, especially related to the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, there was no firearms and weapons with them on the Capitol grounds to do any such thing.
Well, and they found them all guilty. You know, basically, they said that they put out this whole narrative. They put on the whole January 6th committee thing. They painted this wonderful picture of these people hell-bent on overthrowing the federal government, which is not... I've always said that there's not a lever, like if you can attain a certain room inside the Capitol building, if you can achieve and get a hold of this lever right here, then you have seized control of the power of the U.S. government. It's like this switch or this, you know, I've taken over the military. Like, no, there's not you might be able to take some hostages. You might be able to hurt some people. You could kill some people. That does not equate taking over the U.S. government. Like you could cause chaos, hurt a lot of people. You're not going to pass legislation. You're not going to be a dictator. You're not. America's not going to fall in line behind you. You know what I mean? You're not going to make sure that Trump stays in the White House or whatever. You know, whatever's going on. So it was ridiculous on its face. And then you've got, you know, the mainstream media parroting out these narratives. You've got the jurors soaking it up because that's all they do. Right. In the D.C. area, those 97% Biden voting district, and then of course they're finding these people guilty. But I just don't see the. Maybe there was some rhetoric in there because there was. I'm not going to lie. There is still some 1776 blood pumping through my veins. I think it's probably the Scottish in me, but it is. You know, part of me was like, hell yeah, screw, they're stealing the republic out from underneath our feet. They stole the 2020 election. Like, F these people. And then when they start attacking people, it was like, definitely double F these people. You know what I mean? And they start killing people unarmed, like Roseanne Boylan, Ashley Babbitt. Like, it just devolved. But it's a stretch from what they were saying at trial, I feel like.
Well, and I'll throw something interesting at you. I'm pretty sure you and I had this conversation. You know, for someone like me and my perspective, it's a little interesting because for life, up until 2020, I was a registered Democrat. I mean, I voted for Biden over Trump, and then I watched everything unfold.
Right. Yeah.
You know, yeah, I kind of don't know where to go from that. I'm just like, you know, it's interesting to see someone like me on this side because, you know, my political stance is very much shifted, especially watching the way the Department of Justice and the media handled a lot of this.
Was that was your tipping point, basically?
I think it really was. And it wasn't, my tipping point was more, especially getting involved in the cases. Mm-hmm. Really getting involved and seeing how, you know, the media was doing this, what the Department of Justice was saying, you know, Colt McAbee's case was a real eye-opener for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was my, you know, we got to go to break after this, but that was my biggest thing was like, I've been in trouble with the law. I have a criminal record. Hold me without bond. Like, I get it. Whatever. I've been held without bond because of my criminal past before. So not a stretch. But these men, good men, like military, Green Berets, Army Rangers, Marines, regular, whatever they are, never law enforcement, McAbee, Thomas Webster, career law enforcement, never been in trouble. Hold them without bond is ridiculous. We'll be back with more Liberty's Cage right after this.
250 years ago, a nation was born, built on courage, driven by freedom, defined by patriots who stood their ground. Today, we don't just remember that legacy, we wear it. This is more than a shirt. It's a symbol of strength, freedom, and pride. I'm Steve Stern, COO of theflagshirt.com, and I invite you to celebrate 250 years of the United States with us. Wear your pride, stand for something, get your shirts today.
Politics feeling broken? What if you could match with politicians the way you match on a dating app, but based on real values? Meet OpScore from Go USA, the first ever values-based political matchmaker. Think Match.com for elections that aligns voters with politicians. We score politicians on a nonpartisan scale based on your priorities. Track your politician scores and take our OpScore Challenge survey to match with leaders who align with you at opscore.org. Stop voting blind. Start matching smart. Politicians work for you.
Are you a true American? Then it's time to get connected. Download the America First Media and Television app and stay up to date with real news, bold voices, and live events from the America First Warehouse. From national broadcasts and exclusive shows to comedy nights, concerts, and special events, it's all right at your fingertips. No filters, no spin, just America First. Download the America First Media and Television app today and be part of the movement.
Corporate transfer. Fine professional, moving and storage, and inventory management.
If the vote count is accurate, then how come the number of voters is different? And if it's not accurate, then why was it certified? We are suing Letitia James and the New York State Board of Elections for a conspiracy against fundamental rights. This is not about who won. It's not about what party. It's about the fact that they don't care about your rights.
It's me, Joe the Box. And I'm John the Blanket with the America First podcast.
That's what I'm talking about. The Fred Rubino podcast coming to you from the America First warehouse.
Welcome, everybody, to the James Justice Show, tearing these airwaves apart with all the craziness that goes on in the world.
Welcome to the Patriots podcast. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the On the Right Side podcast here at the America First warehouse in Long Island, New York.
Shane Jenkins here with another episode of Liberty's Cage.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Red, Right, and True.
We are streaming live on America First Media and Television app.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Downey Jr. podcast. Be free, stay free.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Liberty's Cage. Sorry, a little off color humor for me and before the segment started. We're here with Ryan Marshall. I am Shane Jenkins, your host. We were just talking about Ronald McAbee's case, and that's, if you wanted to kind of share in detail, I know his case was, it was really something to see him be a former deputy sheriff and go through what he went through.
It was one of the cases that truly disheartened me for the longest time. So first off, when I went to law school, I said, I want to go and I want to be a prosecutor. Then I fell in love with tax law. So I'm like, I want to work for the DOJ and I want to prosecute, like white collar crime and fraud and things like that. Then I said I'd never be a defense attorney until I became one for a short time. But Colt's case really was hard to watch, and truly that tipping point of I watched the media talk about him because honestly, so Colt was originally brought in through Pierce, and then Shipley and I got involved immediately, and then Shipley. But, I knew of Colt's case before it even came to us because I remember, the sheriff at J6, in my mind, and the short little images I saw, I had a preconceived notion that Colt was there and assaulted officers until we started getting involved in the case. And I started, when I was working with Ship and we were working on his petition for bond, and we looked at that body cam footage and those the still images and just showed second by second of what truly happened. Colt didn't grab that officer and yank him down the stairs. Colt got pulled down the stairs by, I believe, a co-defendant. It's been several years, so names are escaping me. Then I watched the body cam footage of the so-called assaulted officer, and on that officer's body cam, you hear Colt say, "Let me know when you are ready. I will stand you up and hand you back. I am protecting you. Like I am over you. I'm protecting you." I think if Colt wasn't there, that officer probably would have been, trampled to death and just beaten to death.
Well, and that was a very heated, and a lot of people, they took those moments like really, really out of context. If I'm not mistaken, that was when the officer tried to roll Roseanne Boylan's body out into the crowd. Is that when that was? And then
yes, that was shortly after.
Right, all hell breaks loose.
Shortly after. Yes.
Yeah, because they drug her out. They found her by the edge of the tunnel, purple and non-responsive. Drug her out into the crowd, attempted to give her CPR and chest compressions and all that. They were not successful. Started to panic, honestly, drug her back up to the police line, and the police were standing there on their riot shields, just looking at Roseanne Boylan's body. Not only that, officers in the back are leaning over and spraying people that are getting close to the front up there. They're not offering aid. They're not rendering aid. And then this big cop comes out and steps out in front of the rest of the cop line and puts his foot on her body to roll her like a trash can back out into the crowd like a piece of refuge. And the crowd absolutely lost it, as they should, because it was an unconscious, woman who needed help. She was turning blue, visibly like blue.
Right.
And they tried to roll her out in the crowd. And then all of a sudden, when that cop did that disrespectful crap, bullshit is what I would call it.
Absolutely.
It was like sticks, water bottles, canes, whatever, phones, tennis shoes, everything comes flying in. And, that's when Lila Moore strikes Roseanne Boylan on the head. And then, I think that's whenever Matt got up in the front of all that and the officer got pulled out. Because that was what incensed the crowd, was that. And then they ended up pulling officer into the crowd, Officer B. Miller, which a lot of people assume was Michael Fanone, when it was not.
Yes.
And Michael Fanone claimed it is him, I believe. Because they show that picture of B. Miller face down, who I eventually escorted Officer Miller to safety with a group of people around him after he got up off the ground. But so if you want to go on about Mac's case, it shot me back. Sorry.
That truly was the most disheartening thing I had seen. Then, no matter what evidence was presented, I know at trial from, we weren't, I'm part of the defense team at that point, but I still stayed in contact with Mac. I still stayed in contact with Sarah. The rhetoric that the DOJ put on originally to detain him, and then it was the same rhetoric they used at trial, and the jury convicted him. I believe he got 8 years. I believe was Mac's sentence.
Yeah.
And then because if it was with it being a 111B, a lot of the programs he wouldn't be eligible for, to try to get some time shaved off.
Yeah. What's crazy, and this is how backwards the D.C. court was. Matt got 8 years. Thomas Webster, career NYPD, on the governor's detail for a number of years. Marine, never been in trouble a day in his life. Watched a woman be assaulted, got angry about it, and tackled the cop and punched his visor from his riot helmet. But they gave him 10 years for that, right? They gave Mac 8 years. Neither one of them been in trouble a day in their life. Right. And I have an extensive criminal history from my darker young years. Whenever I found out I was adopted, the audience knows, I lived a rough life up until I gave my life to Christ in 2016, and the court took it easier on me because of my criminal history than they did on law enforcement for not having a history. They tried to say that, they were trained, and so they should have known better. But on the other hand, the cops were the ones that had the obligation and the duty to be the professionals on the ground on January 6th, maintaining peace and order, protecting the public, not protecting a building.
Right.
And instead, they end up costing the American citizenry 4 lives that day.
I have to say, and I know you're in front of him, so you might disagree with me a little bit, but watching, obviously, if I recall, he was an Obama appointee. Maida, as one of the liberal judges, I didn't overly hate. He still, followed through with everybody. But I watched a lot of the sentences he handed down. He wasn't one of the judges that followed what the DOJ said and asked for, where a lot of the judges, when it came to sentencings, were.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was something I did appreciate out of Maida. He didn't just, the DOJ recommends this, probation, agrees, so I'm going to give this. He did take into account other, he still obviously sentenced people to extended prison terms, but never gave anything he never gave the DOJ what they had ever asked for, and he did make them fight for things they wanted.
Well, he evolved over time, and what
he did.
What I noticed. So Pete Schwartz and I had the same attorney and the same judge. We had Dennis Boyle for attorneys, and we had Judge Maida for the judge. And in Pete's trial, they played, like, at the beginning of his trial, I'll never forget, he came back and told us about it, but they played, like, the worst moments from the J6ers, like, all across they played, like, a highlight reel of this, like, all this stuff. None of the video Pete's in, right? But it's like the cop getting squished in the door or whatever it is, right? Whatever the worst moments for the police were,
right?
And the worst moments for the J6ers. Like, when I say worst, like the most dangerous moments for the police or the most optically damaging to the J6ers. They played all those clips at Pete's trial. They attempted to do the same thing at my trial. He was like, nope, unless he's specifically in that video, we're not showing that video. And then at my sentencing, and Judge Maida is like the Tiger Woods of the D.C. Circuit Court. Or, excuse me, the Barack Obama. He looks like Tiger Woods, but he speaks like Barack Obama. But he was very polite, very civil, and he would ask me questions and give me a reasonable opportunity to explain myself whenever it was needed, and I appreciated that. But the government asked for like 230, I think it was 236 months for me, 232, somewhere in there like that. But it was almost like 19 and a half years.
Right.
And he gave me 7 years. He gave me 84 months. You know, they said, and it was funny. He called them on it too. They said, Mr. Jenkins was one of the worst on January 6th. And he said, every one of them is one of the worst of the worst, according to the DOJ. He was like, y'all, everybody that's been before me, this is January 6th, you said every one of them is one of the worst of the worst. And a lot of people don't know this, but the prosecution can lie in their opening statement and their closing statement. And this is the government, right? They're legally allowed to lie. They could say whatever they want to say about me. The only factual portion is the portion in between, right? That they have to present evidence and stuff like that. But they can lie in the beginning and they can lie in the ending. And so the last thing the jury can hear is lies about you. Is a bit concerning, but yeah, I digress.
I have respect for Maida because remember, so like I was talking earlier, when I had to make those appearances before I had my license, after the first 2 appearances with you and also with Peter Schwartz, then I had to make 2 more with both of you guys like a week later. Between that time is when the DOJ made that big filing and the media just blasted me and everything. You know, Judge Maida was at least nice enough to, like, you know, Mr. Marshall, I'm sorry I have to summon you back here. You know, do we have any update on Pierce? And, you know, and I don't know if you recall, these words are always being ingrained in my head because I thank him to this day that he did put on the record because I want the media and I want everyone to know Mr. Marshall's not here saying that he's an attorney, holding himself out as such. He's not here practicing law, without a license. He's here because I told him to be here.
Right. No, that's good. Well, and it probably covers his ass, too, if he's like, well, why are you letting that guy that's not a lawyer practice law in your court, Your Honor? Like, you know. When we come back, we'll talk about maybe like some UFC 250, the SAVE Act getting through or not getting through, Jake Lang maybe still being in jail. You know, maybe talk a little bit about that. But again, we thank everybody for tuning in. If you want to support J6ers, go to standinthegap.foundation. That is a nonprofit that we started while I was in prison to help J6ers post-pardon. We'll be back with more Liberty's Cage right after this.
It's me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse, most patriotic venue in all the land.
The America First Warehouse, a beacon for all to see, a symbol of unity. For the patriots of America, we stand tall and free. In the America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be.
The America First Ultra MAGA Store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA Store.
Let's go!
Rav family, it's time to stand up and fight back.
We have to be tough.
Join fellow patriots at the America First Warehouse for AMAC's Boot Camp for Patriots.
Yes, sir!
An incredible 2-day event designed to teach you how policy gets implemented, how grassroots movements create change, and how you can help shape the future of America.
Proud and free and standing tall.
On June 19th, don't miss Real America's Voice live, on site, with a special taping of Live from Studio 6B, The Freedom Truck, live music and barbecue. And on June 20th, it's Vendor Village, followed by AMAC's Boot Camp for Patriots live event. Tickets are limited and going fast. Scan the QR code now and reserve your spot today. 2 days of training, fellowship, and action brought to you by AMAC. Get your tickets now before they're gone.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed, because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
I'm Shane Jenkins, your host of Liberty's Cage, and we are back with Ryan Marshall. Ryan, so there's a lot been going on in the J6 community in regards to the DOJ with Judge Jeanine Pirro withdrawing the charges, I believe, against, or moving to withdraw the charges against the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys. Has that gone through yet, or where does that stand right now?
It hasn't. So it started with the Department of Justice filing in the Circuit Court of the District of Columbia for asking them to, dismiss the appeal so they can send the case back down to the District Court to dismiss the indictment against all the Oath Keepers and actually the Proud Boys. I'm more so involved on the Oath Keeper side with Shipley. But right after that filing happened, Congressman Raskin, I believe was the name.
Yeah, Jamie Raskin.
Jamie Raskin filed a petition seeking to be appointed as amicus, and then also seeking to have to block the dismissal. The Circuit Court of Appeals did allow for him to file accepted amicus, but they did, basically deny everything or, not hold what he said in his brief. It held any weight to it, sent it back down to the district court, back down, well, at least on the Proud Boys, or on the Oath Keeper side, down to Judge Maida, and then the Proud Boys went back down to, I believe, Judge Kelly. Since it's hit the district court, I don't know what Judge Kelly has done on the Proud Boys side.
Okay.
I know what's going on in the Oath Keeper side. When it went back down, the DOJ, filed the motion to dismiss the indictment with prejudice against the 12 or I believe it'd be 11 at that point, because I don't believe Michael Green was up on appeal. So against the Oath Keepers, Judge Maida issued an order asking the Department of Justice to respond to his order and asking the Department of Justice to explain their authority and what case law or statutory law, anything to support their request to dismiss the indictment. Basically saying, does the Department of Justice, do you have the authority to do this?
Yeah, so they're under your purview.
Both in the Circuit Court, Shipley had filed we had filed a petition against the amicus. For all the, it was filed under the name of Roberto Menuda, but the point of it was for all the Oath Keepers, and I believe one of the Proud Boys attorneys had worked with SHIP and used something very similar on their side. And then again, just last week, SHIP filed something in the district court as well regarding, in response to Judge Maida, not even the DOJ, and explaining that the Department of Justice has this authority to dismiss this case, and it's just basically being held up. The Department of Justice was set to respond on the 5th of June. They requested 2 more weeks, so now their response is due to the judge this coming Monday. But that's where it stands. It got sent back down to the district court, and it's still kind of just being held up currently by Judge Maida, which is surprising to me, considering just 5 minutes ago I was speaking, relatively highly of my thoughts on Judge Maida. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, wait a second, man, I forgot.
Yeah, but now he's blocking this. So I'm curious if he's just trying to make and preserve a true, clean, and complete record is what my hopes for why he's doing this is.
That he objected and eventually is like, okay, I said something,
exactly.
But forget it.
Yep, I said something, but, the DOJ and the defense
steamrolled me. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I truly think he is hoping for a bid to the circuit court to go up to the appellate level.
I don't know. I like Judge Maida. I will say that. I wish somebody would have been the adult in the room and said, these guys, like, at worst, got caught up in the heat of the moment.
Right.
And did some damage to a building, threw things at cops. Like, nobody stabbed a cop. You know what I mean? Like, there was, it was... I wish somebody would have set that precedent, but unfortunately...
Nichols tried and was right, at least, on the dismissing the 1512.
I mean, it was... But I understand they're in the belly of the beast in the swamp, but, like, somebody has to, I think... That's what upset me about the FBI being the premier law organization in the nation. Like, that there weren't officers slammed. There were. I mean, there's like Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin. There's some good FBI agents that are no longer in the FBI, but they should have been slamming their badge down and saying, look, these guys did what they did, but they didn't do that. They didn't try to overthrow the government. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, they broke a window, they threw stuff at cops, like, let's go get them, or let's ask them to come in for questioning, we'll pick them up, charge them with whatever, maybe a low-level felony or whatever, let them do a year in jail, 6 months, 9 months, 18 months at the most, probably.
Right.
Then the whole thing would have lost its, like, it wouldn't have been, like, it was really kind of a thorn in their side. Like, we were a thorn in their side the whole way through in D.C. You know what I mean? I don't think they foresaw, like, the families gathering around us or the Freedom Corner with Mickey Whithoff happening and all that. Like, there was just so many, the Justice for All song coming out and going platinum. Like, it was just like one thing after another. A letter to Rolling Stone, they got published in Rolling Stone about going to Guantanamo Bay. Like, just so many things that were like, these guys aren't going away. As a matter of fact, the harder we squeeze them, the louder they squeal, It's like...
That DC jail hated me. I would end up being barred from the DC jail because of, coming up. Well, at the time, I was the only one close enough to all you guys, to do a lot of visits. So I'm the only person from a legal team coming in, and and I saw things and started stirring up like, hey, like, this isn't right. Oh yeah, I got barred real quick.
Well, we had some. They eventually gave us USB drives for our discovery, and we were able to get some allegedly get some videos out of there from inside the jail and stuff like that. So it was good times, but not so good times. So did you watch the UFC fights?
No, but for 2 reasons. Well, no. Primarily, that's not my forte. I mean, to be completely honest, I was sitting out in my egg chair on my porch, reading The Things We Leave Unfinished. Like, I was. But no, I didn't. I did see some clips of it. I loved watching the bald eagle fly around and getting the crowd stirred up. That was beautiful to me.
You watched more of it than I did then, right?
Oh, really? You didn't watch any of it?
No, I did not. The only part I watched was the Sean Strickland arrest. That's the only part that I watched.
I saw that clip on TikTok, and then the only other clip I saw was President Trump walking out, giving me real Morgan Wallen vibes in the walkout from the White House, for the event, and, having someone walking out with him.
I might have to go watch that. That sounds interesting. Yeah, I kind of got upset by, Sean Strickland has been very vocal about Israeli influence in our foreign policy, and I agree with him 100%. And Ian Carroll released this video talking about who actually owns the UFC, and it's not Dana White. It's like TKO Holdings, who is chaired by Ari Emanuel, who also owns Endeavor Holdings, who Ari Emanuel is a son of a guy who was an Irgun Zionist political activist, a.k.a. terrorist, Zionist terrorist. Very powerful people involved in Israel, who Sean Strickland happens to be speaking out against, who is hosting an event at the White House, who also happens to be uninvited and arrested when he shows up at the event, hosted and ran by particular people who happen to donate $250 million to President Trump's campaign fund, which I love President Trump. I pray that this is him appearing to be weak to expose the amount of influence that AIPAC and Israel have in our government. If I was playing Sun Tzu, that's what I would do. I would expose them for the amount of influence that they had over me if I was not able to do it any other way. But where does a 1776 fund stand as we speak?
As we speak, it has been completely shot down. So 2 days after it was originally brought to light that this was going to happen, there was a filing in, I believe, D.C. by two of the Metro Police requesting, for injunctive relief for it to be shot down. But then following that, I believe there were two more lawsuits filed. On June 12th, a judge out of Virginia had completely shot down the fund and said that it was not legal, and the DOJ and President Trump did not have the ability to kind of unilaterally make this. And I believe now she is wanting the DOJ and I believe the Department of Treasury to go on record and make for the heads of the cabinets to go on record and say, the fund is dead. We're not paying it out in any way, shape, form. We won't try to create something else with a different name. We won't try to pay this out and by other means. Just, the entire idea of J6ers and or any, person that was weaponized, the DOJ used, weaponization against will be able to be compensated in any way, shape, or form. That's where it currently stands.
I did see that they had recently refunded or funded the Homeland Security and ICE and all that. But now I hear that Recon 3.0 is on deck. And President Trump has not given up hope on funding this. So I think he's going to try to throw this into this next Recon 3.0 bill, along with the SAVE Act, to try to get it through. I'm not hopeful for that, especially with Thune at the helm of the Senate and people like that.
I was going to say, the other problem was you had so many GOP senators even coming out and speaking out against this. Yeah. I don't know if it's concern for, midterms coming up, why they're not stepping up and being supportive. But I by any means other than using the judgment fund, which is a possibility for them to use, there's already something sitting there for them to do this. I truly, especially this year, see any avenue of this being able to be done.
Well, we're out of time, Ryan. Thank you for coming on Liberty's Cage. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll hopefully see you again, and hopefully that 1776 fund gets rolled out soon. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Liberty's Cage. We'll see you next time.
See you guys. Thanks, Shane. Mm-hmm.